some hiding place had escaped notice. This they did, with no more satisfactory result. The old house was empty of any clue that would lead to their further enlightenment. Again they went out on the veranda in despair and sat dangling their legs over the unrailed edge. "It's strange," said Sydney after a long silence, "but in spite of our not finding anything here, the more I think of it, the more certain I feel that she has left a message somewhere. We know it's not in the house. Let's just try to think where would be the most likely place she'd put the thing. Come to think of it, the house wouldn't be a good place after all, for she'd always have run the chance of having it discovered before they left. Of course, Jerry couldn't read, and I rather doubt if the cracker woman could either, but they'd be sure to sense something queer about it." They both sat with their heads in their hands for some time, thinking with deep concentration of the problem they faced. It was Bernice who had the first idea. "Sid," she exclaimed radiantly, "what geese we are not to have thought of it before! Delight expected to meet us down by the big palmetto clump across the pool. Of course, that's where she's left the message." Sydney merely gave a grunt, expressive of thorough disgust at his own destiny, and shouting, "Come on, quick!" set off at a run for the point indicated. In due time they reached the great, spreading scrub palmetto clump. Bernice always said that these clumps reminded her of the expensive palms in the florist shops up north, the kind that was always used as decoration at weddings and parties. When she drove along the wild Florida roads lined with them, she said it made her feel as if they'd just been decorated for a ceremony of some festive kind. This clump was larger than usual, the great leaves falling over in such a way that they formed a tent-like appearance in its depths. "Look out how you search in there," warned Sydney. "These clumps are a great retreat for rattlesnakes, especially in this warm spring weather." They accordingly reconnoitred the ground with the greatest care before venturing to poke around much in the depths of the growth. But, finding no unwelcome occupants anywhere about, they boldly penetrated to its very depths. Nowhere about the bush did there seem to be the slightest sign of a communication, but a sudden whoop from Sydney, around at a farther side, brought Bernice to him at a run. "Look at that!" He pointed to a little twig not more than 5 or 6 inches high, sticking out of the ground a few feet away from the edge of the clump. It would never have been noticeable, except that a small white rag had been tied to the top in such a way as to wave out bravely on the breeze, like a miniature flag or signal. "Isn't it the queerest thing?" cried Bernice. "I sat here and gazed at that thing for 15 minutes while you were away, and while I thought it a little peculiar, it never dawned on me for a minute what it was really intended for. Of course, she meant to attract our attention to it in that way. Wasn't that clever of her? But come, let's dig down under it and see what's there." This time their search had its reward. Down in the fine white sand, only a few inches under the surface, they came upon the message Delight had left for them. It was a note written on a small and not very clean scrap of paper, a piece of a paper bag, in fact. The writing appeared to have been done with a piece of sharpened and charred wood. Doubtless she had possessed neither pen and ink nor pencil, and while the spelling was correct, the chirography was stiff and peculiar, showing a great lack of practice. "They are going away from here, for good," it began with marked lack of ceremony. "I do not know why, but I must go with them. Bernice, I love you. You have been my friend. You are both my friends. Keep the papers for me. They are safe with you, and I know you will not tell my secret. Perhaps sometime we will see each other again. If there is any way I can ever get a message to you, I will, but I do not hope for so much, for I know where we go to the Everglades again. He says it is the only place we can live and be safe. I do not know why this has come so suddenly. He did not intend to go back. Something strange must have happened. There is no time to write any more. I hope you will find this. Bernice, if you will dig down further, you will find something I leave for you. It is all I have to give. I wish you to have it. I was so happy with you. My heart is breaking, but I can do nothing but go. Goodbye to you both. I will never, never forget you. Delight. They looked at each other without speaking when Bernice had finished reading it aloud. There was something deeply touching about the little message. It brought a lump into their throats. Bernice turned to dig down further in the hole where the note had been, and presently brought to light a long string of the light blue glass beads that the Seminole Indian women were so fond of wearing. She laid it in her lap and looked at it for a long moment. Then she put her head down on her knees and sobbed quietly, while Sydney walked away a bit and whistled a loud tune to escape, likewise indulging in any unmanly show of emotion. "There's no use, Sid," declared Bernice, getting up and wiping her eyes after an interval. "We just can't let that dear little thing go like this. You can't begin to think what a hold she's taken on me. Why, I feel almost as if it were a sister of mine that was being dragged away and hidden for some unknown reason. I've made up my mind to one thing. I'll keep my promise to her, of course, literally, but I'm going to spend every moment from now on solving this matter somehow or other. I'm simply sure it can be done." "Needless to say, I'm with you," agreed her cousin. "And what's more, I've a very distinct notion how it's going to be done." "Oh, have you, Sid?" cried Bernice, smiling up at him with eyes to which tears had again started. "That's great of you. What is your idea? I'm crazy to know." "The first step is to pump Mr. Tredwell as skillfully as possible about what he knows of Jerry Saw Grass, and then—" "But, Sid," objected Bernice, "you don't even know Mr. Tredwell yet. How are you going to get acquainted with him to begin with?" "Don't bother your head about that detail, Miss Conant," replied her cousin loftily. "The matter is already adjusted. Yours truly made that gentleman's acquaintance last evening in a long chat we had on the hotel veranda after you had retired to your downy couch." "Sydney Conant! And you never even told me. How did you do it and what did he say?" "I was keeping it a surprise. I got some information out of him that is going to be rather valuable, I expect, but I can't tell you now. It's growing late and we've got to be making tracks for home, and I must do a little tinkering with that self starter before we do. It's been bothering me this afternoon." Bernice slipped the beads into her handbag and trailed after him acquiescently enough as they made their way to the car, but her mind was a seething cauldron of questions and determinations and longing to meet again with Delight. They were almost ready to go when Sydney glanced up and beheld Ike Massey grinning at them from a palmetto clump not 50 yards away. Chapter 9